speaker, minister, Black mental health matters advocate, and God's voice for the millennial generation. I am Jasmine Lynn Pope, and I am turning my wildest dreams into the greatest reality. Well, we're back for another Saturday with Purpose Talk. I am Jasmine Lynn Pope, and I am your host, and I want to welcome you back again to an amazing show. I've got a special guest with me, and today's show is going to focus on mental health. July is Minority Mental Health Month, and for those of you who don't know, I am a licensed independent social worker here in the state of Ohio, and I have my own private practice, Blessings in Disguise Counseling and Coaching. I believe that it is part of my purpose to ensure that all people have the opportunity to have someone to speak to in regards to their mental health or if they have any diagnosable mental illness. In the African American community, mental health is something that we have shied away from talking about for so long, and so it's a part of my purpose to make sure that we have the awareness, that we break the stigma of mental illness and mental health in the African American community. Just because we talk about these topics does not mean that you're crazy. It does not mean that there is something wrong with you. It does not even mean that you cannot believe in God and see a therapist as well. These are all myths that have circled around in our community, and so we come to break those, break the cycle of trauma that has been in our neighborhoods and in our communities, and just make sure that we have awareness of what these things really are. As Black people, we don't always have diagnosable mental illnesses, so that is your depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to be able to share, to get in non-judgmental and an unbiased opinion about what it is that you're going through, and get some skills, some tips, some tools to be able to help you in your everyday life. So for today's what's going on in the 419 and beyond, I want to shout out all of the amazing African American counselors and therapists that are out there doing such amazing work, but especially here in the city of Toledo. So I want to shout out Carter Thomas, LaShawna Alfred, Cecil Holston, Sierra Farmer, Warrenetta Hollingsworth. There's just so many, Andrea Hill, just so many of you all that are out here doing amazing work in our community, and we don't want that to go unrecognized. So from me to all of you and all the others who are out there from Ohio and beyond, thank you for being a face for Black mental health in our community. All right, so let's jump in and get into our special guest and our topic for today. He's someone who is very special in my life. He's been in my life since 2014. I happen to carry his last name. His name is Delmar Christopher Allen Pope. Many of you just call him Chris. I will allow him the opportunity to talk a little bit about himself, what it is that he does, and how mental health relates to him.
So I just want to say thank you for having me on your phenomenal show. I look forward to all the bigger and better things that you got going on. So my name is Chris. Most of you know me as by that. I am a mental health advocate here in the city of Toledo as well. So my role is, I've had several roles. I went from chemical dependency counselor to a case manager to qualified behavioral health specialist. So I kind of have a lot of different roles, aspects that I work in. A lot of the main things I've done recently is, even though I'm no longer working in the chemical dependency counseling role, I still keep in contact with a lot of different clients. I still advocate for them, trying to get them to sober living facilities, trying to find sober housing, trying to find detox centers if they need those different things. So I still kind of work in the realm of mental health in just different aspects. And then most recently, I've been blessed enough to work over at Girl Patterson Academy with the phenomenal Mrs. Johnson, who's the principal over there, and kind of helping some of the students over there at the school. Helping them kind of overcome some of those things you were mentioning earlier, some of the anxiety, the depression, some of the substance abuse issues that may be going on, or even some of the, we've even had a couple cases of some kids that may even have some suicidal tendencies and things of that nature. So just blessed to be able to help any way I can.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about our journey, purpose has always been a part of that from the beginning, but mental health and mental illness has also been a part of that. So I know this has been something that you have come into and being more open about, but kind of share your journey on improving your mental health and where that started.
So absolutely. So a lot of that comes from childhood trauma, things that I've never dealt with as a child that I probably should have tackled early on, from being abandoned as a child, not having a father figure around now, often besides my uncle or my grandfather, but didn't have my actual father around. And so I suffered with a little bit with acceptance, struggle with trying to find my identity, identify who I was as a person, struggle with women and alcohol and a lot of different things that I probably shouldn't have dabbled in, but I did anyway, just trying to fill voids. So it was something that became very important to me. So in my own journey, I kind of went through some different things. I've seen a couple different therapists, finally found one I kind of connect with. And so most recently, I've been back to going to therapy consistently, trying to do different things for myself, but then also different things to make myself better as a father, reading and studying, and just to be a better father, husband, and man overall.
Absolutely. So I know when we first got together, we had been together for a while. We, had some things going on, as any relationship does. And so we attempted counseling, and we went for a few sessions, and then, we kind of backed off and different things of that. And so you opened up to me and talked about your struggles with being able to open up to a therapist as a Black man. So can you talk about kind of that journey and how you were able to overcome the fear or maybe even some of the stigma still with talking to a therapist and how it has really helped you improve in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for men, a lot of times we were taught that vulnerability makes us weak, but that's a myth and that's not true at all. It's actually very strong to be vulnerable and to find someone that you can trust enough to be open and honest with, to share those intimate things. A lot of times we try to cope though with those things, with some of those things I mentioned before, from the sex to the alcohol to the drugs to the gambling to the sports to all those different things. We try to fill those voids instead of opening up and understanding that it's okay to talk to someone. You may not always make a connection with the first person you meet, and that's the one thing I wish everybody would understand. You have to find a therapist that fits you and your needs. Everybody thinks, oh, well, it didn't work this time, that means therapy isn't for me. No, that just means you have to search until you find someone that you connect with on a personal level, to where you feel like, okay, I can be transparent with this person. I can be myself. I can let my guard down and kind of debrief myself from all the stuff that I carry throughout the week.
Absolutely. So, like today, I had a consultation with a client, and it was her first time really actually even making a step towards wanting to, seek therapy. And so that was one of the things that I talked to her about, is that therapy, the therapeutic relationship is like any other relationship. You have to find that person that fits for you. And sometimes, as hard as it may be to be vulnerable and open and maybe have to go through that a couple different times, you have to treat it as any other relationship, that you have to find that person who you mesh with, that you feel comfortable with, that you feel that can really help you, you know what I mean? And sometimes you can, whether you call it a vibe or energy or whatever, you can just feel that from another person, and even in the helping profession. So I tell anyone who is looking for a therapist, don't feel like because maybe that first one didn't work out, that should be the end of it. You know what I mean? We're all human. Sometimes, we as therapists, we have bad days. I know I've had bad days, and I've had to apologize to clients and just say, hey, I was going through some things. I wasn't sure how to handle it. I tried my best, but I know it probably came out in the session. And I want to apologize and know that I'm still here to help you. So I'm glad that, throughout these years, you have been able to really find that person that helps you, that you can relate to. Not that the other people didn't help you, but now it's like that strong relationship that you have where you feel comfortable enough to go back and, continue to seek help and get yourself stronger and better, right? So now that, you are in therapy, kind of share some of the lessons that you're learning, or even some of the skills that you are learning and able to apply to help you in your day-to-day life.
One of the main things is, I think we shy away from, as men and women, is accountability. So the main thing is taking accountability for your actions and for the things that you've done to cause someone else's hurt, pain, grief, anxiety, depression. And we all have those burdens that we carry, and until we learn to accept accountability for our actions, we continue to repeat those same cycles. And so that's the main thing, is accepting accountability for your flaws. So all of us have flaws. A lot of them show up in different ways. But until you are able to accept those things and figure out, okay, how do I change this negative behavior that I have, or thing that I've been dealing with, how do I turn that into a positive? So accepting accountability, figuring out what works best for you. Far as anxiety. So for me, I have anxiety that can get real bad. She can take sometimes to where I have panic attacks. But one of the things I've learned is what works best for me is when I know I'm getting to that place, I'll go outside to my garage. I have my own business. I love detailing cars, so I'll go outside, even if it's in the middle of the night, and I'll wash one of our cars just to kind of decompress and to relieve some of that stress and pressure and tension that I may be under. That way I don't explode, or I don't have anxiety attack or a panic attack and take it out on unnecessary people.
So, it's been tough because sometimes you have your moments, I know I have my moments, and so one of the things that we really had to learn was how to communicate to one another when we're having those moments, you know what I mean? How did you learn me when to know that, okay, she just needs that moment? Because sometimes we have to give each other space, right? You have to accept that this is something that a person is dealing with, and they, even with all the skills, the tips, the tools, some days it just gets to a place where you're like, I don't know how to handle this, right? And I can't communicate what I'm feeling or what it is that I'm going through. Maybe I don't even have the words to be able to do that. So how have you been able to learn me when I have those moments? And then I will share about how I learned you.
So some of those things are honestly just learning your spouse and your mate, realizing what works, everything, what worked in past relationships won't work in new relationships. And that's something I had to learn. So before gifts, trips, those things will work. With you, have to learn what your love language is, what works best for you, and how to communicate with the way things that work for you. So I know for you, you like your space, you like your time to yourself, you like taking the kids out, and I'll take the kids, and you can have the house to yourself, and you can read and relax and do the things that make you happy. And so learning how to do those things consistently, whether it's making sure that I wash clothes and then you fold them and you put them up, or making sure I work together with you as a team, I know all those things make life a lot easier for you. So it's more or less of learning how to compromise and work together.
Absolutely. I think you have to know the person's signs and symptoms. And that's not necessarily to say that you have to be a qualified person to understand, all the things that the DSM-5 states, which is the book that clinicians use to be able to diagnose people with mental illness. But I've had to learn what it is that when Chris is going through his own battles with anxiety or depression, or sometimes maybe even some of the trauma that he's dealt with, what that looks like. And so for Chris, like he said, it is the kind of, he can just become angry. He becomes snappy, more or less. So in conversation, he's just real quick. And I'm like, yo, you're talking, to me in a kind of crazy way, and I have to bring him back to say, okay, I'm noticing some things are going on with you. Do you want to talk? If he says no, I allow him his space, because what you don't want to do is intrude on that person and make them feel even more uncomfortable in those moments that they're going through. If he says, I want to go out and, just be with my friends, I give him that space and that opportunity, because sometimes, I'm a mom. So I might sound like the nagging mom to him when I'm trying to talk to him, and especially with being a therapist. I have a lot of skills and tips and tools that I could give him, but I cannot be his therapist, right? And so I have to have that boundary of knowing when to be his wife, his supporter, his friend, and when to step in and be like, all right, no, we need to take this to the next step. Like, you really need to go get help, or you need to do this. Have you talked to your therapist this week, or whatever the case may be, so that you're not, we're not bumping heads and making things worse, right? All right, so now we've got a little bit of the background in regards to how, you've dealt with mental health, mental illness, and all of that. So let's kind of segue that into talking about purpose, because I believe that in the midst of all of our pain and the struggles that we have gone through, a lot of that is meant to help make us, mold us, and shape us into who God has truly called us to be. So I want you to kind of tell a little bit about, your journey to purpose and how the mental health piece has played a part into that.
Absolutely. So for me, purpose looks at a couple of different things. I've grown up always being a musician, and that was what my passion and my love was. And then I kind of start to get stagnant in that area and start to feel like, okay, maybe it's time to start looking at some other things, some other avenues, honestly, to affect ministry in a positive manner, but also to feel some fulfillment and some joy in my own personal life. And so I start to have some conversations with my pastor and a couple of different mentors and things, and start to realize, okay, I have more to offer than just being a musician. I have other spiritual gifts and natural gifts and abilities that I need to tap into in order to really become the person that God has designed me to be. And so along with working with you, talking to you, and kind of figuring out what works best for us, we kind of come up with a couple of different things that we do individually and collectively that we work on together. So for me, I'm all about community and helping in different ways. So I do a lot of volunteering, a lot of different things in the community to make sure that I do help and give back, because I never want to be the type of person to where I've been blessed to have all these different things, but I don't give back to the next generation. So my wife would tell you, it's young guys that come by our house all the time that I'm mentoring and pouring into, helping them develop skills and talents that they may not realize that they have on their own. So it may be carpentry or detailing, or it may be as a musician. I kind of always try to give back and making sure that I'm helping develop the next generation.
Absolutely. How hard was it for you to really accept your purpose when God began to reveal it to you? Because a lot of times, you know, like you said, you were a musician and you kind of felt like that was the life that you were supposed to live, and you know, you had goals of wanting to travel the country and, you know, be an MD and all of those different things, and then God began to kind of push you into and pull you into a different direction. How hard was that or how hard is it still to kind of stay in the lane that God has for you versus going into a different direction?
So the main thing is because it's comfortable. So, right, so you get into a point where what you do is comfortable for you. And so I've had the opportunity where I've been able to travel and make a lot of money being a musician, but that life was comfortable for me, and then it also was toxic for me because it kind of kept me stagnant in a lot of different areas and played on some of the issues that I did have, as far as the drinking and the staying out late and all the different things. So I had to step away from that lifestyle to realize, okay, God, this is what God has for me. It's okay to still have that passion and that love for music, but I can't let that be my only focus. So even now, I have moments where it's like, okay, maybe I should just go back to being a drummer. It's more comfortable. It's more, I can be complacent in that area. I don't have to really work hard because I excel at it because it's something I've been naturally blessed to do. Instead of finding, okay, well, maybe it's better that I do push myself, because I never want to be a place where I'm stuck and I'm stagnant. I want to always grow and develop and create more avenues and create more skills for myself.
Absolutely. So I talk a little bit about it in the book where, you know, sometimes God has to get us really uncomfortable to make us comfortable in the position and in the calling and in the purpose that He has for our life. And so I think you just really brought that home on how, you know, sometimes we have to go through another level of pain, not the pain of people hurting us or, you know, job pain or anything like that, but the pain of dying to our old self to become that new self of who we're truly supposed to be. You know, purpose has definitely been a journey for the both of us, and it has not been easy. You know, ups and downs, relationship issues, personal issues, you know, death, all of that. But it's those moments that really cultivate us and make us into who we're supposed to be. So as you have gone through this journey, I want you to talk a little bit about how you have been impacted by your friendships or different relationships, and how they have either pushed you towards your purpose or maybe pulled you away from it.
So for me, I have two different groups of friends. I have those that I consider who I hung out with and kicked it with prior to accepting who I really am, and then I have those who accept me for who I am now. And so the issue is a lot of times it's a daily battle within myself, because sometimes I do want to go back to those old friends and those old ways, because again, it goes back to being comfortable. But my new circle of friends push me and challenge me and say, hey, we got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do that. No, you can't go do that. We got other things we need to do. You got a mission, you got a vision. You have vision. When you have vision, you can't be stagnant because you don't fulfill the vision that God has given you. And so we all have purpose that we have to tap into with this outside of ourselves. And so I'm thankful for the new friendships that I have developed, because it's allowed me to see my old self in a way that I've never seen it before. Because a lot of those old friends, they're still going to be doing the same things 10, 15 years from now because they're comfortable and they haven't accepted the fact that they do have greater purpose on the inside of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very key thing, is knowing when you need to shift to the next level in those relationships. Not that those old friendships don't mean anything to you, but like you said, you need those people who are going to continue to push you and move you forward rather than keeping you stuck and stagnant in where you are, or even taking you backwards. Because at the end of the day, ultimately your purpose is, you know, it's not just for you, but it's yours. It's yours to protect. It's yours to really make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And you'll be the one that's held accountable when you don't do the right, you know, the right things with it. So for anybody who was out there, you know, and they're in that place of really trying to find their purpose, or, you know, you're walking in it, but it kind of feels like, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm going backwards. Just know that, like, you have to be obedient to what you're supposed to do. You have to be careful if God is really telling you, you know, hey, you can't have this person around you or that person around you, because it's definitely for your protection. And sometimes that protection may seem harsh or unfair, but when you go back and you make it through that time, and then you can look back and say, okay, now I understand. Now I see why he had to pull me from those things, those places, those people, because he really needed to get me to where I could hear and be able to move forward, right? So as we, continue to talk about purpose, I want to talk about faith, because faith is a big key to really unlocking the door to your purpose, as well as maintaining it. So talk about your journey to really build your faith.
And so, to piggyback on what you were just saying, I think a lot of us have to realize that isolation isn't always a bad thing. Isolation is the time where you can really hear God more clearly, especially if you're trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? What am I called to do? What is my journey? What is my purpose? That period of isolation where it's just you and alone time with God is key for your faith, because it helps you build your faith. So are you studying your word? Are you praying? Are you reading? Are you listening to things that are going to ignite the fire that's on the inside of you? So it's more or less not just listening to whatever. You have to be careful of what you listen to. You have to guard your gates, is what I like to call it. You have to be conscious of what you're listening to, who you're allowing to speak into your spirit, because everybody isn't speaking the same thing. So you got to realize that everyone may say, well, you're called to do this, you're called to do that, but they aren't trying to, they should be only confirming what God has already spoken to you. They shouldn't be giving you fresh revelation. And so you have to be very, 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 hear very carefully from what God is saying, to where you don't become distracted. And so I think that's where the faith really comes in, because you have to trust yourself, but also trust God in whatever journey he's taking you on, to realize that, hey, it's not for your demise, it's for your protection, and it's only to build you and make you better.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the people that you listen to, or books that you may have read that have been a positive influence in helping you build your faith, get closer to God, strengthening the different things that he is leading you towards your purpose?
Absolutely. So my wife is huge on reading, so we have maybe 3-4 bookcases at home now.
Yes.
With all different types of books. And so one of my favorite authors, which she knows, is Miles Monroe. Dr. Miles Monroe has a lot of phenomenal books. If you want to understand your purpose as a husband, he has a book on that. If you want to understand your purpose as a father, he has a book on that. If you want to understand your purpose in general, there's a book on that. So he's one of my favorite authors. But then also most recently, we both been reading Relationship Goals by Pastor Mike Todd. And although we're already married and we've already established our relationship, it's never too late to add some new tools to your new tools to your chest to understand, to make your marriage better. And so I think that's one of the things we've learned, is reading is very, very key to sustain your marriage, but also to strengthen your marriage. So I also read 5 Love Languages, the husband edition, but also the regular edition. And so it's kind of just finding different things that help you. Finding a spiritual leader. I talk to my pastor pretty often, almost probably daily. We have conversations. Outside of my pastor, I have positive mentors like Mr. Clyde Kennard, who's a phenomenal businessman in the city.
Yes.
So we kind of I bounce things off of him regularly, whether it be just regular life questions, marriage questions, business questions. And it's all about your circle, and your circle should be able to challenge you and push you to that next level.
Absolutely. So as we kind of bring this section to a close, any final words of encouragement that you want to be able to offer to the viewers out there about purpose, mental health, all of it all together? Like, what would you want to say?
So I would just want to say, especially for men that are paying attention, that are watching, take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there. You don't have to be stuck into your 9 to 5. If you have a passion and a purpose, and you feel like you have a business and a strategy, get with those free resources that are around town that can help you pull those gifts out of you and establish yourself. Also, if you have childhood trauma and hurt that you need to deal with it, because eventually it's going to rear its ugly head, and you want to handle those things prior to you getting to the next level, so then it doesn't come back in a way to where it stagnates you or push you further behind schedule to where you should be. And most importantly, continue to walk with God, grow closer with him. I think that's the most important thing, is understand that faith and your purpose all go hand in hand. So you have to have a strong relationship, and whatever religious belief you may have, if you don't have one, or you just believe in higher power, whatever that is, you have to make sure that you a spiritual being first, and that faith and your purpose all go hand in hand and get you to where you're destined to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to thank you, Chris, for joining us today for this amazing show. I think you have helped a lot of people, especially a lot of men who are not in that place or have not been in that place where they felt like they could be open about their issues, especially with mental health. So I think you will be a great example for others to be able to follow and really taking that step to get the healing that they need. So as we kind of bring this show to a close, that's where I kind of want to leave things, is that healing is very necessary and it's very possible, but you have to be open and willing to get that and to receive it, right? And so as much as we take care of our physical health, you know, when we start having headaches, we'll go to the doctor for medication. If we feel like our sugar is too high, we'll go and get insulin. Or if we have high blood pressure, we'll go and get pills for that. Your mental health is just as important to make sure that you're taken care of. And it does not always mean that you have to get put on medication for it, but it's something that you should definitely prioritize in your life. Whether that is you going to a doctor and getting medication for it, if it's going to a therapist, if it's journaling each and every day, increasing your prayer life, going out and exercising. These are all different things that you can utilize to help improve your mental health, right? But the most important thing is to make sure that you get the healing that you need, because your purpose is dependent on it. The people who come after you, because they need you for their purpose, they're depending on you to get the healing that you need. And once you get that healing, there's so many doors, there's so many avenues that will be open for you and others because you did that. So like I said, if you ever need any assistance, whether it's not even just coming to me, but for all of those people that I named earlier, you know, R. Carter Thomas is another person that I can recommend, Glenn Carpenter. There's so many of us that are in this area that are open and ready and willing to help you get the healing that you need to walk in your purpose. So, you know, I'll make sure that their contact information gets posted, whether it's on my website, social media, whatever the case may be, so that you have the knowledge and the information that you need to take that step to begin working towards your healing. So as we come to the end of another great show, I want to thank you for tuning in. My name is Jasmine Lynn Pope, and this is Purpose Talk. Have a great rest of your day.